Kingdra is another one of those Pokemon that throughout its appearances in the TCG has a pretty consistent gimmick, and it is one that I always enjoy playing, and that is, what can I get for 1 energy? And man, when Kingdra delivers, you really get the most bang for your 1 water energy. In this TCG history video, we're going to be looking at every printed card of Kingdra that I could dig up, and we're going to talk about them, competitive viability, aesthetics, and maybe even a little bit about how well the Pokemon itself has been adapted into trading card form. Starting with Neo Genesis, a set with so many absolutely banging cards that Kingdra is probably the 4th best holographic water type. No weakness is pretty nice, but 90 HP on a stage 2 with attack cost that high, it's just not gonna see play. Those attacks have some decent text along with them, but the energy cost and the damage output just do not elevate Kingdra to where it probably should have been in its premier card. Luckily, Neo Revelation gave Kingdra its very first 1 energy attack in Genetic Memory, which let it access any of the attacks on the Horsea or Seadra underneath Kingdra, namely Seadra's Mud Splash attack, getting a 30 damage attack for 1 energy with the chance to do a little chip on the bench. Not bad at all. And being able to pull off that kind of attack for 1 energy in the base Neo and Neo On formats meant that you didn't care about energy removal. And better yet, you didn't care about discarding that energy for Pokemon Center either, which really made up for Kingdra's relatively low HP for a stage 2. It really just made for great offensive stall. You would keep taking damage, never get hitting for weakness, and just heal it off with Pokemon Center. All the while, you don't care if your opponent discards your energy because you can just play your energy per turn and use Genetic Memory again. All the while, you're laying down chip damage on your opponent's active and their bench. It's what really made Kingdra Center a top tier deck. If you want a more in-depth look at Kingdra Center, go ahead and watch the full video I've already done on it. Now on to Versus Series, and I do not like the artwork on Claire's Kingdra. Pretty decent attacks for a 70 HP basic, but nothing to write home about really. Okay, what about Lance's Kingdra? I certainly like the artwork better. Was it a better card? Surprise, it's pretty much the same card, except that instead of like Claire's Kingdra doing 30 plus 10 for each of the 2 coin flips you hit heads on, this one does 20 plus 20 more for each coin flip you hit heads on. So still pretty meh. Up next we got Expedition Kingdra swinging in here with a pretty fun deck archetype if you're playing a limited format. If you're playing Neo On, that format's probably a little too fast for, a stage 2 Pokemon that needs 4 energy to attack. But if you're playing in an e-reader only, or some other type of limited format, then this Kingdra can make a really good partner for Espeon. Because this Kingdra does have 120 HP, that means it's got a pretty good chance of staying alive long enough to get off at least 1 Rapids attack, and after it does so on the next turn, if Kingdra's ever in danger of getting knocked out, you can use Water Cyclone to move water energy off of Kingdra and onto benched Pokemon. And then you heal it up with a Pokemon Nurse, fully heals the Kingdra, you don't have to discard any energy. Then you attach a Warp Energy to Kingdra, thus overriding its high retreat cost, swaps it out with the benched Pokemon that you just loaded up with all of those water energy, probably just another Kingdra that you've instantly loaded up and ready to go to hit your opponent for another 50 damage attack. And then you pretty much repeat that, moving energy back and forth between Kingdra, healing each one every time, and using Espeon's ability to return those warp energies back to your hand so that you can just do the same strategy over and over again. It's a really fun deck and definitely worth the time it takes to set up just to get that strategy in motion. Not a whole lot to say about Crystal type Kingdra from Aquapolis. All of these Crystal type cards were kind of just gimmicks for collectors, because if you've ever seen one of these Crystal type cards in person, they are beautiful looking cards. Competitively, there's just really no viability going on with it though. With EX Dragon, we got Kingdra EX, which boasted 150 HP, and it's got genetic memory back, so it could have been good if there were actually some Seadras you could play underneath it that had some decent attacks to utilize. Because typically, you know, I would say, yeah, using Water Arrow for 1 energy, or even Waterfall, dealing 40 damage for 1 energy, that's not bad at all. Except that Kingdra EX was in the EX era and had to compete with things like Energy Rain Blastoise. And yeah, you could pair Kingdra EX with Blastoise EX to make a pretty strong water deck, but it wasn't the best thing you could pair with Blastoise. Remember, you have BLS coming out around this same time and really just wrecking format. I do like the card, and the card is pretty good, but to have a retreat cost of 3, 2 weaknesses, and in a format that can just outspeed and outpower, you know, Kingdra EX kind of gets lost in the mix. I actually like the non-EX Kingdra from EX Team Rocket Returns much better. Functionally no weakness, 1 prize attacker that can cause all kinds of mayhem if you can hit your coin flips off of Hyper Whirlpool. Kingdra at this point was still struggling to find its niche in the Pokemon game. It really hadn't solidified that role as a 1 energy wonder, but we'll get there. Not quite with the Holland Phantoms Kingdra either, which was a Delta species Fire Steel type. This card feels like it was kind of designed to be an anti-Delta, anti-EX kind of Pokemon for rogue decks, even though I never really saw this Kingdra getting much play. There were just so many other cards that could do those same functions, but more efficiently. Kingdra went Delta again in Dragon Frontiers when it became a fighting type and got that little lowercase EX tacked onto the end. This is one of those cards that I really wanted to make work at the time, really wanted to fit into a deck, a lot like the Delta species Tyranitar EX that I've talked about in the Tyranitar video. But especially by the time that Dragon Frontiers had dropped, that format was just so jam-packed full of amazing cards. Yeah, you could rare candy straight into Kingdra EX, you could start getting off energy links very early on, get a great setup, but it still wasn't the best setup or the most efficient setup for that format. This Kingdra EX is a good example of when a single card tries to do too much. You know, this Kingdra is trying to be a support card, a defensive card, and an offensive card all at the same time, and it doesn't do any of those things very well. But ho ho, what is this? Legends Awakened. My god, this Kingdra card for 0 energy, Aqua Stream. Search your discard pile for as many water energy as you like, show them to your opponent, and this deck does 10 damage for each water energy that you chose, put them on top of your deck, and shuffle. Man, right off the bat, an attack for 0 energy that lets you choose the amount of damage you want to deal. Yeah, you got to get the water energy in your discard. Do you know how many supporters in the Diamond and Pearl era would just discard cards straight from your hand? A lot. With the Broken Spacetime Stadium, you could evolve straight up into Kingdra on turn 1, attach an Expert Belt so you get that extra 20 HP and the extra 20 damage on your attacks. And then for 1 energy, you are dealing 80 damage on your first turn attacking, which is ridiculous. This card is a first turn menace. Dragon Pump even sets you up to discard water energy so that you can hit for an even bigger Aqua Stream for no energy next turn. And the beauty of it is with Expert Belt, that effect only occurs if Kingdra gets knocked out and your opponent gets to take an extra prize card. Well, you could just run 4 copies of Super Scoop Up, scoop that Kingdra before it gets knocked out, which detaches the Expert Belt, in effect denying your opponent 2 prizes on the same turn. Man, I love this Kingdra. Base Kingdra from HeartGold SoulSilver is a bit of a downgrade. Not a whole lot to talk about here, but I will forgive it for having some very beautiful artwork. Luckily, HeartGold SoulSilver also gave us Kingdra Prime, which couldn't really do enough to support its own archetype, but just from looking at the card, you can tell it's a really great splash card or support card, because you only need 1 water energy to deal that 60 damage. And then with Spray Splash, you can get some cheap knockouts, or it's essentially like a plus power for free every turn. And its usability could drastically change depending on all of the decks being played around it. Because if you remember, HeartGold SoulSilver that format had a lot of fire types in it, so you could utilize the extra damage off of Dragon Steam against things like Houndoom, Magmortar, Typhlosion, but you also had huge decks like Lantern and Magnezone especially that could just tear this card apart just hitting it for weakness. Moving into the black and white era, Kingdra did get its first dragon type card, and they're sticking to the 1 energy rule. I actually really like Tri-Bullet. It's just not powerful enough to really be in standard play. It's really more of a really good theme deck card. And unfortunately, that's how a lot of these dragon type Kingdra cards come across. It's almost like the dragon typing on the card makes it more difficult to use. That's why I'm just lumping the Primal Clash Kingdras together. You know, the Gather Strength Dragon Blast combo, yeah, it's pretty powerful, but it's a 2-turn combo, and your opponent's really going to see that coming off of a stage 2 Pokemon, so they've got plenty of time to do something about it and take no damage. And the Twister attack on that other Kingdra from this set has no business having any other text to it. 2 energy, 70 damage would be pretty good on its own. Yeah, flip 2 coins, discard some energy for heads, but the additional off chance that the attack could do nothing off of some bad coin flips, get it out of here. I don't want it. Same thing with Fates Collide. You know, this is an EX. Yeah, it's a basic Pokemon with 170 HP, but you gotta beef it up a little more than that, or decrease those attack costs. You can't have a Kingdra card requiring, you know, a minimum of 4 energy and having to stack them in a certain way just to make the attack worthwhile. Sun and Moon era, Burning Shadows, let's fucking go. This Kingdra is a single prize attacker that's doing 90 damage for 1 water energy. You can even discard a water energy, deal some extra damage to something on your opponent's bench, which sets you up next turn for a very strategic brine. But with Tornado Shot, yeah, you're not going to be able to 1-shot or 2-shot everything in the format. You got some big hitters at the table across from you a lot of times in this Sun and Moon format. Fortunately, like I said, Kingdra is a 1 prize attacker, and you're going to be able to snipe some good stuff off of the bench. You know, not just with setting yourself up with Tornado Shot, but even if you deal 90 damage or 180 damage to your opponent's active and they decide to retreat, you can still snipe them with Brine. I think that this Kingdra card right here is the exemplary Kingdra. You know, what a Kingdra card should be, because it plays into the lore of the Pokemon, you know, being able to snipe with its dragony snout, but also being able to deal moderate to high damage off of only 1 energy. Historically, that is Kingdra's best gimmick. And I really like the artwork. This card just gets my overall approval. I wasn't playing a lot of TCG towards the end of Sun and Moon, so someone will have to let me know down in the comments how much play this Kingdra actually saw. Dragon Majesty, got a Kingdra GX, 230 HP, pretty solid, and 3 possible 1 energy attacks. Well, Hydro Pump technically isn't all that useful unless you have more than 1 energy on there, but Reverse Thrust is a pretty good strategic attack just to have 1 energy and do some chip damage. The controversial part is kind of the GX attack. You only get 1 of these a game, and so the argument is always, is it worth it to pull off whatever the GX attack is? And for Kingdra, not really. Just doing 40 spread damage almost seems like something that should be on the card anyway, but not required flipping that GX tile. The 1 energy requirement does free up a lot of space in your deck to kind of build a strategy around Kingdra, add other Pokemon in there, other supports and tools. But once again, when you do consider what's going to be across the table from you, you know, Kingdra GX isn't really going to stack up against the other big GX decks. Good try though, definitely moving in the right direction for Kingdra. Then we got another Kingdra in Battle Styles up in the Sword and Shield era, and this is a great theme deck card. You know, if you're running full water, this Kingdra is a must if you're just doing like a simple fun deck. But competitively, you know, it just takes so much setup for this card to ultimately kick in and be useful that it wasn't competitive. But this card's character rare, alternate art, 1000% not only the best looking Kingdra card, but maybe one of the best artworks I have seen in the TCG for a while. I know here in the last few sets, they've really been ramping up. They've been doing some great stuff artwork-wise, but just for some reason, this Claire and Kingdra with the fall backdrop, it's gorgeous. Makes me nostalgic for Johto. Overall, incredible card artwork-wise. Makes me not even care about the text that's on there. In fact, I want the text gone. I just want this art piece. And this has been a quick look at all of the Kingdra cards that have been printed thus far. If I missed any Kingdra, let me know down in the comments. Also, let me know what your favorite iteration of Kingdra is. Have you had any fun running any Kingdra decks? Let me know what Pokemon you would like to see featured in upcoming TCG History videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.